You're listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
Welcome back, folks, for our fourth and final segment of the day of The Rock is On. I am your host, The Rock. And now we're going to talk about Gang Green and the New York Jets and preview their upcoming game against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, last week against the Buffalo Bills, the Jets accumulated nearly 500 total yards of offense. They had 493 to be exact. Ryan Fitzpatrick looked like he was John Elway out there, they got off. I'll admit they got off. They were a little sloppy though in the first two drives because Fitzpatrick fumbled the ball a little, but they were fortunate enough to recover, and the ball bounced in their direction and in their favor. But the Jets' offense, it was a juggernaut last week against the Buffalo Bills. And then you throw in the fact that Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Quincy Enunwa, two of those three guys had over 100 yards receiving. Marshall had 101, Decker had 121, I believe, and Enunwa had 92. But Decker had a touchdown and all, and not to mention the big free agent accusation of Matt Forte, who had 30 carries for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he had a phenomenal game. But during that game, though, one thing that scared me the most was obviously the Brandon Marshall injury. And when I first saw it, and they showed replays of it, and I'm sitting there as a fan, I'm like, oh no. Great. Just great. This sucks. We're probably going to lose our best wide receiver for the year. He had a phenomenal year last year. We lose him now. We're not going to be the team that we said we were going to be in the offseason. But you know what? Fortunately, though, Marshall got up on his own power. He got up, was able to walk under his own power, came back into the game, and finished strong. And apparently he has an MCL injury, which, doesn't require, doing some research on it, doesn't require any surgery. It's not an ACL, because if it was an ACL, knock on wood, he'd be out for the year. So fortunately, that's not the case for Brandon Marshall. Now, going into this week against the Kansas City Chiefs, both Decker and Marshall are a little bit banged up, though. Marshall had the scary knee injury, and a foot problem, though, was not practicing. Decker practiced a little, but he was limited due to a apparent shoulder injury, but Decker should be able to play. Marshall, it's a 50-50 chance because, you want to take, when knee injuries are very scary, very, very scary. And, you want to be extra cautious with that. But if he doesn't play, expect guys and rookie wide receivers like Robbie Anderson and Sharon Peake to get more opportunities. Because you know what, the Jets, they added a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. Getting more younger at the with wide receivers, bringing younger wide receivers in, hoping that they can win the one-on-one matchup, so that way it can open up for Decker and Marshall. And then you throw in the fact that Enunwa is making phenomenal progress. He's emerging as a quality and a top premier wide receiver. But let's just jump in right into the keys of the game for the Jets. If the Jets want to win this game against the Chiefs in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium, which is one of the craziest, toughest home field venues, toughest home fields to play in the NFL, no question about it. It's right up there with CenturyLink Field and, I guess, in a way, Lambeau Field. They have to get off to a great start. Silence the crowd, What they did last week in Buffalo with that offense, with that dynamic and explosive offense, that's what they got to do in Kansas City. With or without Brandon Marshall, or even a limited Brandon Marshall, they got to get the job done, and they got to do exactly that. Just got to. Because you know what? If you're the opposing team and you go in Arrowhead Stadium, the last thing you want is the crowd to get into it, and they're doing the tomahawk chop, going, oh, 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 That's just going to give the Chiefs momentum. You know, you don't want that. So take the crowd out of the game. Don't give Alex Smith extra time in the pocket, because if you give him that extra time, he will burn you. He will find the open man, and he will destroy you. Because you know what, Alex Smith, people say that, oh, he's a game manager. You know what? Maybe at the beginning of his career, but if you look at his stats and the way he plays, he's steadily becoming an elite NFL quarterback. There's no question about it. But you know what? The Jets, they have a dominant defensive line. They can get to the quarterback. They can get to any quarterback, for that matter. Because, I mean, you have Muhammad Wilkerson. You have Sheldon Williams. You have Leonard Williams. You have Steve McClendon, the free agent from Pittsburgh. So you got to beat though. If you're the Jets, you can beat. I think you can beat any offensive line and get to any quarterback in the NFL. And lastly, as a Jet fan, you just hope that this secondary makes a stop and does not get burned. You just hope, because that's been the Achilles heel for the Jets the first 2 weeks. Now, granted, it's only the first 2 games in the first 2 weeks, but that's been the Jets' Achilles heel lately. And you just hope that you don't have Travis Kelce or Jeremy Maclin or Jamal Charles, if he plays, coming off an ACL injury, burns the Jets. You just don't want that. So hopefully the Jets, they fix their coverages. They fix what they had to. No more blown coverages. Darrelle Revis, may not be the same player that he once was, but you just hope he's at least half of that. Not like a shutdown corner, but at least half of what he used to be. And just gives the defense opportunities to make plays. And they don't get burned by any of these playmakers. But we'll see what happen. We'll see what happens on Sunday when the Jets play the Kansas City Chiefs. And that concludes our 4th and final segment of the day. Oh, and also one more thing. Tonight we have, before we wrap up, we have Texans-Patriots on Thursday night. No Jimmy Garoppolo, no Tom Brady. So the Patriots are starting their 3rd-string quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. Excuse me. Can't pronounce his last name. You figure that this is going to be a game that the Texans should just single-handedly win this game. But in New England, Bill Belichick has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He may pull a rabbit out of his hat in this one. Maybe have Julian Edelman run some sweeps or play some quarterback, from what we heard this past week. But we'll see how this rookie plays, and we'll see what happens. All right, and that finally concludes our final segment of the day. Have a great day, everyone.